Hi, and welcome to PowerViews. I'm Dan McDade, your host and president of PointClear. PowerViews is a show dedicated to finding solutions to some of today's toughest sales and marketing challenges. My guest today is Rich Vancil. Rich is IDC Group's Vice President for Executive Advisory Strategies. He started IDC's CMO Advisory Research Service in 2003, and he provides senior technology marketing and sales executives with insights into how to improve productivity and efficiency in their organizations. Rich has an MBA from Harvard Business School, and he's twice been named to B2B Magazine's top 100 most influential people. Rich, welcome to PowerViews.
Great to be here. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate you allowing time for this today up there in Framingham, Massachusetts. First of all, just to start off, what's happening or not happening in 2012 that surprises you?
Well, yeah, Dan, my comments are going to be primarily around the marketing organizations and marketing in the IT vendor community. So as we talk today, think IBM, HP, Microsoft, Cisco, Intel, kind of right on down the line is where I spend my life and do my research. So for these vendors, this is and as you mentioned, I've been doing this for 10 years. There's been more transformational change in the past 8 or 12 months, and more change coming than I've seen in the previous 9 years of doing this. And the major factor right now is what we like to call at IDC the new buyer. And the new buyer is empowered, smart, coming into our organizations through a variety of digital and social pathways, very knowledgeable, in many ways a lot smarter than we are as vendors. And behind this new buyer, all this activity, they leave in their wake, so much data, a data trail of where they've come from and what they know already. And the opportunity for marketers is to capture all that big data. Big data is coming to market, and capture that, process it, analyze it, turn it into insights, and then hopefully intercept that buyer, with the knowledge of where he or she has been, so you can really start to add value in what should become the selling process. So this is a major transformation in tech marketing and selling, because traditionally, and I've been in this for 30 years, marketing does its lead generation, and maybe a physical metaphor, marketing goes to the trade show, brings home the fishbowl of business cards, physically passes it to the salesperson, and that's the handoff. Yeah. Well, the world is just, that's gone, and so the marketing transformation is really being led by this new buyer and the way the customers are coming, and that's forcing all this transformational change on marketing and selling departments. Change in process, change, the plethora of marketing automation tools to deal with the data issue is just startling. And then in addition to that, we've kind of got this stinky permanent recession that's putting margin pressure on so many vendors, and that's forcing a lot of just organizational change, and in many cases mashups between marketing and sales, because the COO and the CFO are trying to make these organizations more productive, and typically marketing and sales have not been cooperatively productive, so we're seeing more mashups between marketing and sales. So much going on right now in tech marketing. Good, makes a good livelihood for an analyst.
Yeah, and that leads to another question. If a client were to ask you, how do I balance inbound versus outbound marketing, what advice do you give them?
Yeah, I think that's a little bit dated at this point. Inbound versus outbound. It really implies separate asynchronous activities.
Mm-hmm.
I like to talk about typical marketing is inside out, from us to them. In our marketing communications, and then the inbound that you refer to, often led by direct response. But those imply sort of separate asynchronous streams of communications, inbound and outbound. And the world today is really more of a dialogue and a communication, which is what it needs to be. And just back to that new buyer, that buyer, what they really want, from the vendors is education, and they want to be connected with peers, and they want to be connected with, intelligent third parties. And so all of that implies a sort of a continuous dialogue, a conversation of helping guide that buyer to the right educational and information resources. So that's the future. Don't think about it as separate inbound versus outbound. Think about it as the digital or social dialogue that's going to continue throughout the buying process, if you will, from the marketing activities through the selling activities.
I think I asked that question from the perspective as there's a lot of print right now, or at least electronic print, about inbound marketing and how, you know, basically the buyers are 70% through the buyer's journey before a sales rep even needs to get involved. And I think companies sometimes make a mistake ignoring the fact that there is some outbound proactive effort that's required, you know, to convert prospects to clients. And that's
yeah. Well, absolutely, and the problem, you know, you're right, you know, on those figures, I would agree with that. But an additional, you know, issue that we see through our research, if you look at the typical SG&A or just the marketing and selling, you know, cost envelope for a tech vendor, there is about $4 spent in sales for every $1 spent in marketing. Interesting, right? So you think about that $5 total, 4 sales, 1 marketing. And what the buyers tell us over and over again, don't sell so hard. I don't want to be sold to. This, you know, if you're selling like that, you know, press harder on this contract. You're just going to get the physical pushback, and that's tech marketing and selling of 20 years ago. They don't want to be sold to. They want to be educated and informed. So I think when I look just the math, that $4 of sales and 1 of marketing, I say that's going to change. And I really think that the future, if you look at that cost envelope, looks like a more even split of marketing and selling monies and activities. Marketing is going to be more important as time goes on. You know, marketing in many ways in tech has been certainly not as powerful as sales, and in many ways it's been kind of a rudimentary Marcom function, PR, fact sheets, you know, and some product support. But marketing is truly going to come into its own in this digital era, and it's going to happen so fast. And you know, the next 1 to 3 years is, I think, make or break time on this.
Well, I think we're going to want to quote you on that. I think that's going to be interesting to our audience. I want to read a quote from an article that you wrote back in April in B2B, and it talks a little bit about marketing automation. The pace of decisions and deployments for marketing automation software and services is seen to be booming. Allocations for this area are expected to be as much as 9% of discretionary marketing spend this year. This is triple the rate of previous years. In general, IDC believes that most marketing organizations are not ready to deal with the complexity of marketing automation from the standpoint of proficiency and maturity. And I guess my question is, how does a company decide, you know, whether or not to use marketing automation, and what can you offer in the way of suggestions?
Well, you can't. It's a good question, but you can't decide not to use it, because if you don't, you're not gonna be in business. I mean, you know, and this is not just a, you know, are you going to have a good marketing department? You know, we see that the internet disrupts or puts out of business companies or entire industries if you're not able to, you know, be on the right side of that dynamic. And so tech marketers today and tomorrow, more importantly, are going to need to be great data masters and great technologists. There's no question about that. So if you agree with me, then the question is, how do you get that proficiency? And you know, one of the issues that you know, and this is not pejorative, but you know, sometimes marketers are more, you know, artful rather than operations oriented. Marketing has capricious activities. You know, marketers do different things. It's not like the rote work of, you know, closing the P&Ls every month. That's very formulaic. So you know, it's been hard actually for the development community to write software that captures marketing activity, but they're getting there. So how do you get proficient? One of the things that we recommend is to have a marketing operations role, MO, marketing ops. And this is a role that we have seen grow and blossom around the industry over the past several years. And today, if you look at the typical large tech marketing organization, perhaps 6% or so of the staff hold the role of marketing operations. And these executives and individuals do planning and budgeting, everything related to measurement and metrics and ROI. And they deal with the evaluation and the deployment of marketing automation. And finally, sort of the fourth thing on their job list is making sure that the marketing process and the marketing automation is connected, primarily in the B2B realm here, connected to the sales operations and the sales automation, such as CRM systems. So if you're struggling with this, or if you're on the onset of struggling with marketing automation, have a robust marketing operations staff that's tasked with this.
Another article I wanted to talk with you a little bit about, and this is switching over to social media. You talked about social media comfortably taking its place as a value-added member of the marketing mix, and there was an article actually yesterday in B2B, and it said that you found that 84% of respondents said that they use social media or social networks to keep up with trends and stay connected. However, only 18.6% said that social networks have influenced how they interact with vendors and make purchase decisions. And I guess I'm wondering, this is going to sound like a dumb question, is social media being overhyped, or is it just a matter of kind of catching up with the market?
Yeah, I think that's right, Dan. I think it's a little bit of both. I think there is clearly some overhype and maybe over expectations. I was actually, this has moved so fast. Even a year or so ago, I was a little skeptical. But as a researcher, I'm seeing really good use cases, and the primary use cases for social in B2B, I think today happen with good listening. The best thing I think you can do as the CMO is to set up those social listening posts so that you're listening to the dialogue of your customers, how they talk, how they refer to your company, the terms they use. I do quite a bit of work with Dell. Karen Quintos, their CMO, tells the story that by careful listening, what Dell has learned is they're hearing how Dell customers refer to Dell products in different ways than Dell marketing itself uses. And so by taking that back in, they can now talk about their products in the way that customers want to talk about it. So, good listening is, of course, essential to any dialogue or any conversation. And as I said earlier, marketing is becoming more of a dialogue or conversation. So, the mantra is, listen first and then speak, and good things will happen. So we are seeing, good use cases. That's why I sort of made this claim. It's starting to take its place as a value-added member of the marketing mix. Where it's going to get more valuable is after you do that listening, is to mount more overt and intentional outbound, communications. Now that you put your voice into that, and you really start that conversation with that prospect, and hopefully, you steer them to you, right? You steer them to Dell or whoever you might be. So that's the opportunity. As for the statistic we cited that buyers aren't quite, they're on social media but not quite getting the value for the B2B purchase process. It's going to take more time, more comfort level, but we do know, again, that what buyers want is not to be sold. As I said, they want to be educated, and the social channels are a great way for that education and information process, because through the social channels, they can connect with peers, they can connect with third-party experts, and then to your own assessment, once they then decide to engage in that dialogue with the vendor, they come to the table as a very smart party. So that's why I think there's going to be really rapid pickup and usage of the social channels over the next weeks and months. I mean, this is a race.
It's fast moving. You talked just a couple of minutes ago about the mashup between marketing and sales, which I think is a great term. What I see is a lot of conversation about alignment between marketing and sales. And as a matter of fact, I once challenged a large audience to find the oldest article about alignment between marketing and sales, and they found one dated in 1993. So this has been a topic that's talked about for a long time. But is it happening? What is it going to take for there to be communication and alignment, even with things such as basic as a lead definition or the definition of the target market, which I find lacking in many companies? What's happening with alignment and what needs to go on to improve the situation right now?
Yeah. It's not as positive as we'd like. We survey annually and ask the marketers separately and the sellers separately about their alignment sentiment, and it's basically been sort of at a C- level for the 5 years doing it, even in this environment. So the margin pressure is, I think, is going to force more organizational change. In tech, where I know your background is, Dan, marketing and sales are often on in their own galaxies.
Yeah.
Doing its thing and selling, and marketers wearing the black turtleneck and the sellers in the white shirts, and not a lot of great cooperation or alignment. And here's the thing: from 1960 to the year 2000, the tech industry grew at double-digit growth rates for 40 years in a row, double-digit growth rates annually. And today, and for the future, IDC writes the numbers, right? I mean, this is a 5 or 6% growth industry. It's a slower growth industry. And when growth slows, I think that, the CEO, CFO, CEO look at that marketing and sales dynamic where, never the twain shall meet, and they say, you guys have got to figure this out because, you're spending together 12, 15, 20% or more of revenue, and there's got to be friction and process problems between the two of you, and so get it together. And so that's why we see this organizational mashup. I would say that about 25% of the major tech vendors that field marketing, at least, reports into sales as one organizational mashup that's been forced by the C-level to make that happen. More tactically, another way to make it happen, and this is happening, I mentioned the marketing operations role. There's a parallel role on the sales side, sales operations, and one thing that we see happening more very lately is that marketing ops and sales ops are now in the same bucket, if you will, perhaps reporting to the same person and working on those process issues. You mentioned sometimes marketers and sales don't even have the same definition of the lead. Well, how are you going to define goals or objectives for lead management if you can't even define what you're talking about? So, but if you put these guys or executives at marketing ops and sales ops in the same bucket, in the same room, with the same objectives, and say you can't come out until you get the definitions down and work it out, then things should start to happen.
Well, that's a good point. What have we missed? Are you anything else that we should be talking about today that we've missed?
No, I think this has been short, but we've covered a lot of ground. I guess one final thing, if a CMO came to me and said, Rich, if there was any one thing that I would do for the remainder of the year, what would it be? My response would be sales enablement. And sales enablement is a pretty broad term, open for a lot of definition. At IDC, we take a very information-centric definition of it. We describe sales enablement as getting the right information, and that meaning the right marketing content assets, to the right seller in the right time and in the right place in the right format to move an opportunity forward. And there's a twofold benefit here, Dan. When we survey sellers and we ask them of 100 things that marketing produces, a thing being a data sheet, a webcast, a white paper, an event, of 100 things that marketing produces, how many of those things do you use? Invariably, they'll come back and say, we use 15 or 20% of those things. So marketing overproduces, and they produce things that don't get used. And so the benefit is twofold. If you can literally take stuff off the table, stop producing the 70 or 80% of things that sales isn't using, one, you're saving money immediately. You can go to your CFO at budget time and say, look, I just took 5% of our budget, whatever the number is. And the second benefit is even stronger, which is you're going to now have fewer things for that salesperson to have to sort through as he or she needs to get prepared. And salespeople spend a lot of time sorting through and trying to get prepared. But more often they leave the office disabled than enabled. And so by reducing assets, you get that twofold effect. So sales enablement should be top of the list for marketers.
Well, I've heard that before, and I appreciate you reinforcing it. Rich, how can folks get in touch with you if they want to reach out and have a conversation or hopefully become an IDC client?
Our Vancil, R-V as in Victor, A-N-C-I-L at IDC.com. And, of course, I welcome any inquiries from our loyal fans.
All right, well, good. Well, thanks again for being with me today. For now, this is Dan McDade signing off from another edition of PowerViews. Thank you for watching.